There are all sorts of e-bikes these days. We've got e-bikes that look like motorcycles. We've got e-bikes that fold up, ones that look like hunting bikes and have giant fat tires. We've got electric motorcycles, mopeds, more electric motorcycles, things that look like choppers, things that look still kind of like a chopper but have pedals. But what if you want something that just looks like a bike and rides like a bike and basically just is a bike, but electric? Well, that's what I've got for you today. This is the Velotric Summit. It looks like a standard hardtail, kind of all-purpose, just bicycle. It could be a mountain bike, it could be a trail bike, it could just be a commuter bike. It's just something that looks like a good all-around, old-fashioned bicycle, but of course with some new features and some new high-tech stuff that I'll get into. Now, although I am a dealer for the Velotric bikes because I feel like their quality is very good and their prices are reasonable, they did send this one out to me so I could make a dedicated video about it. Now, I have ridden the bike before, short little rides in the parking lot, things like that. I'm familiar with the components and things that are on it, but I really haven't gotten a chance to take one out for myself and do a proper ride with it. So I'm actually pretty excited about this. I've already done a dyno run. I know how much power is coming out of this supposed 750 watt motor. It's gonna be good news, I promise you. But I'm really interested to see how this bike handles primarily just around town as a good, again, like I said, just an all-purpose commuter. I feel like this is a bike that you could put a rack on, you could take it to the grocery store, but you could also hit a couple of trails on the way there. So let's go take it outside and find out. Well, I suppose since this thing is so bicycle-like, first thing I should do is ride it around for a couple of minutes. Even without the motor on, the bike is, I think it was 62 or 63 pounds. So it's reasonably light for something with some trail-capable tires and front suspension on it. Battery's a 48 volt, like 14.5 amp hours or so. And it's reasonably easy to pedal. You've got an 8-speed setup just in the back here. And on flat ground, yeah, feels like a bicycle. You're probably not gonna wanna pedal it up many steep hills. That's when you're gonna start feeling the weight of it, which I'm feeling now. But as soon as you put that into one, suddenly it becomes quite effortless. Hello, cat. It has kind of a unique throttle. It's a thumb throttle on the left side, which is my preferred placement for it. What's different is instead of the standard like rotating, it's more like a lever, similar to what you'd have like an ATV or something, but it doesn't take as much effort to push. In fact, it's really, really light, and the pedal assist level seems to be connected or tied to the throttle as well. Screen is really vibrant. Changes colors for every assist level. So I'm thinking, based on the dyno run, I'm gonna be able to just cruise up over this steep hill right here on throttle only, like really easy. Let's see if that's the case. Not gonna pedal. Just gonna let the throttle take me up and over. Doing 14 miles an hour. Hill gets a little steeper right here. Slowed down to about 11, but it doesn't feel like it's struggling. It still feels peppy, if that even makes sense. I don't even know how to describe if a motor's struggling. I guess sometimes they just make funny noises, and it's just not. It's a geared hub motor. Front end feels nice and light. Bike feels maneuverable. Feels like a bicycle. What are we running? Oh, Shimano hydraulic brakes. That's interesting. You don't see Shimano hydraulic brakes on too many bikes these days. They're good. I used to use them on a lot of my own bikes. I just haven't seen it on a production bike in a while. So I did mention the bike has some high-tech features. So one of the things this bike can do is be tracked, basically like an Apple AirTag. You can use the built-in Apple Find My Device app if you hook this up with your phone. So if it ever goes missing, you can locate it. I think that's a pretty cool feature to have built in. I would say in some ways better than like a GPS because you're not having to charge it all the time. So we're doing 20 miles an hour. And I know there is a way to turn the speed limit up to 28 as well. Of course, the bike has its own integrated headlight. So it has no trouble getting right up to that 20 mile an hour limit. Like I said, you can unlock it to 28, which I kind of wish I would have done before this ride. I don't have any doubt that's capable of that speed because of the power. So before I hit a light little trail, let's throw the dyno run into the mix here. Since I already did that, some of you may have seen that. I put it in a separate video. But I was pretty impressed by the numbers, and I think you will be too. Okay, let's run it up. That ran up nice and quick, right up to the Class 2 20 mile an hour limit, which is kind of what I was hoping for with the lighter weight wheels on this, the more mountain bike-like geometry and setup. And there we go. Not bad at all, actually. Better than I was expecting. It was so smooth and quiet. That was really nice. 1,316 watts. That's really good. 33.26 pound-feet of torque. Also really good. This is a pretty powerful setup for a bike that is, like I said, something that looks like a bike, rides like a bike. I think 1,300 watts is a really good number for this bike. It's reasonably lightweight, it's very maneuverable, it's got a good torque number. That means it's gonna climb all the hills you need to climb. If you turn it up to 28, I feel like you do pretty good at keeping up with traffic. 20, not as much. Nobody really drives 20. So far, this is a very nice ride. I'm reminiscing about my teenage and early adult years of riding my hardtail mountain bike. It wasn't electric, of course, at the time, but for me, that bike was transportation. I was just telling Blake earlier today at the shop, actually, that I used that bike on the mountain biking team, but then I shipped it to Florida. I used it as transportation there for 2 years, and then I shipped that bike back and used it several more years because it was just good at everything. A hardtail mountain bike is a bike that really is just usable at normal stuff you would do every day. Now, when it comes to e-bikes, fat tire bikes have replaced a lot of these, and it is kind of odd that if you want a quote-unquote normal-looking electric bike, the options are thinner. I didn't mean that as a pun. And of course, some of those more normal-looking bikes are going to come from name brand companies that aren't as daring to just make fat tire bikes and motorcycle style bikes. They're going to make things that look more like bikes, but then they're going to come with a really high price tag that, in my opinion, is not usually justified. This bike is $19.99. Sweet scooter! But this bike is capable of doing the city commuting route with its built-in headlight, tail light. They do have a rack that's available for these as well. I've installed one of those for a local customer. But then if you want to hit a little bit of a trail like this, you can. And this is going to handle so much better than the usual, motorcycle style bikes that I've been getting lately from various companies. This is just so much more maneuverable. The handling is so much better. The weight is better. But my point is about all those things, this is in many ways a more enjoyable bike ride, and it's one you can absolutely get some exercise with. It's got a torque sensor. You can turn this down into a nice low pedal assist setting, which is what I'm going to do past this person walking. One thing I've noticed on these trails right now is a noise, or I should say, a lack thereof. The bike is basically silent. There's no rattling, there's no clacking noises. I'm not even hearing any chain slap. I'll get a close-up. There's a chain guard, I think, that's helping with that. But the bike is really quiet, which I think tells me that everything is well put together. Oh boy. Do I want to do that? My feet are going to be so wet if I mess this up. Whew. That was pretty deep. I made it. I suppose it's worth mentioning that this bike does have all sorts of UL certifications and IP ratings, so there's no concern. Oh man, are you kidding me? So if somehow you manage to get one of those California e-bike rebates, I still haven't talked to anybody who has, this bike is one that would qualify. But also, you don't have to worry as much about getting it wet or using it on a daily basis in the rain. This bike should be able to handle it. I've seen people taking the batteries off and dunking them in water and all sorts of crazy stuff, which I still probably wouldn't recommend doing, but I guess in theory you could. That big deep puddle was a good enough test for me. I didn't even talk about the wheel size on this. These are 27.5 inch. This is a very popular size on bikes these days. Gives you a ton of tire options. If you want to turn this thing into more of a street commuter, put a slicker tire, road tire on it, you can. If you wanted to put something a little more aggressive on it, it looks like, yeah, you've got decent tire clearance. You could do that too. The brakes feel decent. They're Shimano, so you know the quality is good. I've certainly felt more powerful brakes on other things, but these are more than enough for what this bike needs. I don't think I mentioned yet that there are a couple of different frame sizes. This one is the regular, that's the smaller version at my height, 5'10". It feels very comfortable, very maneuverable. I could probably go up to a large and ride it as well, but this regular size feels really nice for me. The saddle does go down quite a bit lower, so you could certainly be several inches shorter. It does have some tech features, the Apple Find My device, so you can track your bike down. Of course, they do have an app. You can log your rides, your mileage. I don't see anything on the app that's like particularly groundbreaking or super useful that's not on the display other than the fact that you can use it to find your bike, that of course is well worth it. And it's something I'd like to see on more bikes. There's that screen, nice and clear, really bright, easy to read all the time. Here's this throttle, which is a little different than most, but real easy to push. Puts the lever closer to your thumb so you can actually reach it nicely. Shimano hydraulic brakes. Those were working quite well. 180 millimeter rotors. They are using nice things on this bike. It's got a through axle. This is actually a proper suspension fork setup. I mean, this is stuff that you normally do not see on bikes under $2,000. I know it's barely under $2,000, but it is. You can see the tail light is tucked in right underneath the saddle there. And this is that nice big motor. It is a geared hub motor that you would typically see on a fat bike. So what they've done, and I've seen a few other companies do this, is they make a dropout width that's nice and wide, not so you can fit a big tire in there. You got a little bit of clearance, but so you can fit a wider motor. That means larger magnets, more coils of wire if you actually use that space to put in a proper motor, which they did. So that's how we get the better torque and wattage numbers than you might see on similar skinny tire bikes like this. That sticker with the UL certifications and everything for the battery. Paint job is really, really nice. It's a great looking bike in person. Oh, and I definitely wanted to show you the chain side of things, the drivetrain side. So we have this chain ring up front, which has the narrow and wide teeth that helps to hold the chain on nicely. And then they have this little guy right here to keep the chain on as well. And then you're not hearing chain slap, I presume, because of this little rubber piece. That's not only protecting the frame from getting chipped up by paint right there, but it keeps it nice and quiet so you don't hear that bouncing around. The fork is not just like a open and close. You do have some positions in between. I just left it open for my ride, and that felt pretty good. And you can see how far I had the seat up, the seat post, for me to be comfortable. So you've got a fair amount of room to bring that down for shorter riders. So this one is the regular size. That's what the big R is for. They have one that's a little bit larger as well. I think they've put together a really nice overall package here. And if you agree, then you should definitely come test ride it. I'm gonna clean this one up a little bit, bring it back inside. I'll leave it here for test rides. So if local people to Grass Valley want to come try one of these out on the local roads and trails like I just did, of course, you're welcome to. I'll go ahead and link you to Velotric's website directly for this model so you can see all the specs. But of course, we are a dealer. You're welcome to contact us with any questions you have about this bike as well. If you want to see more bikes like this and any other type of bike, of course, and you want to support the channel, don't forget, you can always buy some Carnivore Kyle beef jerky, only available at Area 13.